I'm Mayor Marc Morial, and we've prepared this important message for you to warn you of the dangers of a severe hurricane. If you remember Hurricane Betsy, you know the power, the fury, and the devastation that a major hurricane can cause for this city. Nothing, and I repeat nothing, is more important than preparation. For you to have a plan, for your family to have a plan, if you're a business owner, for your business to have a plan to prepare for the risks associated with a major hurricane. We've prepared a short video for you to educate you about the grave risks and the possibilities from a direct hit by a major hurricane. I recommend it to you because you won't hear or see a more important message this year.
By all accounts, New Orleans has been lucky to have escaped a direct hit from a hurricane since Betsy in 1965. But that also means a majority of today's citizens have no direct experience with one of nature's most dangerous threats, a threat that remains very real this year, with the experts predicting more than a dozen named storms this year, and those same experts identifying the Gulf Coast between New Orleans and Florida as the area with the worst probabilities for a storm's landfall.
46% for tropical storms, 31% for the most intense storms, which gives you the 4 and 5 category. The city of New Orleans has a protective levee system. However, there are limits. Category 4 and 5 storms take us above those limits.
New Orleans narrowly escaped what looked like a direct hit from Hurricane George in 1998. And to the city's credit, an estimated 44% of our citizens heeded the mayor's call to evacuate the Crescent City. But that also means more than 50% of New Orleans citizens stayed behind for whatever reasons. The city's director of emergency preparedness says New Orleanians just don't realize how lucky we were that George ended up veering away from its direct hit on southeast Louisiana.
The majority of the people in the city do not realize what the threat is, do not understand the threat from a total tidal surge and a city filled with water. And that was the reason for the evacuation. And those that chose to stay obviously didn't understand what the threat was, didn't understand what the consequences would be. City with 20 feet of water for 2 to 3 weeks, you can't really consider that and think of that and still choose to stay.
Our city sits below sea level, wedged between Lake Pontchartrain and the Mississippi River, protected by an elaborate system of flood walls and levees. But if a storm surge should bring water in over those levees, the water in New Orleans itself would be as deep as the levees are tall. Even the higher parts of our city, like Gentilly Ridge, would face as much as 17 feet of water. And areas like eastern New Orleans, already 10 to 12 feet below sea level, could be 30 feet underwater. You wouldn't be safe even in a 3-story building.
For a minimal hurricane, which means a Category 1, Category 2, or a fast-moving 3, in general, there's not the need to evacuate, and in general, the mayor will not call for an evacuation. When we look at a slow-moving Category 3, a Category 4 or 5, making a direct hit on the city, that's when the tidal surge can be a possibility, and that's when the evacuations are called.
The experts predict 1 out of every 4,900 southeast Louisiana residents would die from a Category 3 direct hit, many of them right here in New Orleans, and most from drowning. A Category 4 storm would worsen the odds to 1 in every 850 residents. And in a worst-case scenario, a Category 5 hurricane would kill 1 in 100 of our citizens.
Imagine having 20 to 25 feet of water moving at 20 to 30 miles an hour. Wave action on top of that, plus the wind blowing 125, 130, 140 miles an hour, and at elevation up to 200 miles an hour.
Nobody wants an unneeded evacuation, of course, but the frightening truth is we have no options. The Superdome will not be available this year as a hurricane shelter, but instead as a refuge of last resort.
What that means is when the evacuation routes are closed, people can't leave the city, and the hurricane winds are at our door, the hurricane winds are at the city, and people are left in the streets, left in the city, and because they have chosen or were unable to leave, then the dome will be open and people can come in there to get above the elevation of the floodwaters. And if they're stranded in the dome for 2 to 3 weeks with 20, 30,000 people, and the food situation, the water situation, and the sanitary situation, remember, toilets don't flush in a city full of water. It's very frightening.
City officials and the experts have also considered the idea of vertical evacuation, moving people into high-rise buildings for safety. But the first 5 floors of any high-rise building pose a danger from flooding. And above the 5th floor, and you're threatened by high winds and flying objects flying as fast as 150 to 200 miles per hour. The bottom line is, instead of finding reasons to put off making that decision to leave, the City of New Orleans strongly recommends that you prepare a disaster plan in advance for yourself and the entire family, including the pets. Know where you're going to go and know how you're going to get there. Create your disaster supplies kit with enough food and essentials to cover everyone, again including the pets, for at least 3 days. You should also plan to secure your home and your valuables. Bring in any outdoor potential flying objects like lawn furniture or garbage cans. Turn off all of your utilities before leaving, and when you're protecting your windows, use shutters or pre-cut plywood. Unfortunately, masking tape doesn't really protect anything.
When the mayor says evacuate, it's time to go. I mean, there is no question, there's no discussion. The threat's there, we're expecting a worst case scenario.
None of us wants to see New Orleans devastated by a major hurricane, and none of us wants to evacuate unnecessarily either. But we all know we've been lucky all these years, and we'd be unwise to ignore the warnings of the experts who say this year we may very well find New Orleans in harm's way. Those same experts tell us no matter what part of the city you live in, when a hurricane threatens this year, it really will be safer to evacuate yourself and your family, no matter how inconvenient, because it really will be better to be safe than sorry.
A major hurricane can affect our lives, can affect our property, and could seriously impact the very city that we all love. The most important part of hurricane preparation is for you as an individual, your family, or your business to have your personal plan. And we hope that after watching the preceding video, you will understand how serious a threat a major hurricane is to our city. As much as we can do at City Hall, as much as our Office of Emergency Preparedness can help us to be ready for a major hurricane, the safety of you and your loved ones is up to you. Like we do, I urge you to take the threat of a major hurricane very seriously.
If you'd like more information on surviving a hurricane, including booklets available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, as well as a special booklet for citizens with disabilities, call the Office of Emergency Preparedness at 565-7200 or visit the website www.nooep.com.